these kind of things, which I definitely want to resolve. Hi, Justice Weiss, newest of the 4 justices. Potentially we'll be adding a 5th justice here in the near future as well, so that there's an odd number of us for any potential panel issues. I have also been
Hey,
appointed
Dr.
for
Naya.
now.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been appointed the director of the San Andreas State Marshals for the time being. My intent with that is to likely restructure it to a certain degree to where I am not in that position for very long at all. During such time that I am in that position, I'm not going to be taking any active cases that involve law enforcement, just to avoid any even shred of impropriety or potential bias.
Yeah.
But my goal is to step out of that position in the very near future, with a bit of a restructuring to such that it's not the day-to-day operations of the agency are not run by a justice.
Oh shit!
Conflict.
Holy fuck!
So more to be said there.
Causing the restructure.
All aware, and feel free if there are any issues, anything that is outstanding, bring them to me, and I will get it on the list, and we'll start attacking those things one by one, like I said. Other than that, I don't really have anything specific on the agenda other than hearing the concerns from y'all on what is outstanding on the DOJ side.
Yep.
And just kind of compiling everything that needs to get done so I can figure out how to best go about getting it all done.
Beautiful.
I understand there's been, last thing I'll say before I hand it over is, I understand there's been a tense environment, a lot of contention back and forth. I've always been, and everybody's accused me of being, a very middle ground guy. So I hope to bring that same kind of mentality towards things to keep, I know ultimately there's no way to make everybody happy. If there is, fantastic. But at least come to a solution that everybody can agree upon without any hostility or contention. That is my main objective. I think everybody can probably agree, and I hope so. And if you feel otherwise, please bring it to my attention that I've always been pretty fair and equal across the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I intend to continue being that way. And yeah.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I think in the grand scheme of things, I think things are in a pretty good spot right now in terms of tensions and whatnot, because I think most tensions have sort of dissipated. And in the last, I think, 2 weeks, I think a lot has been agreed on, at least enough so that we can move forward. I think from where I'm kind of standing right now, I think now we just got to, collectively, all the legislative branches, find a way to get efficiency back on track. You know what I mean? So when things do come into play, how do we resolve those things at a speedy enough manner where, things can kind of move forward, right? I think already, at least in terms of new legislation that's going up, that's been getting approved, repealed, whatever, rather quickly. But yeah. Well, anyways,
I'm going to be stepping into a bit more of an active role with regard to that as well.
Okay.
To help expedite things.
Yes.
I didn't
Are
want
you
to
at the
again,
courthouse?
day one jump in and start doing stuff without talking to other justices, making sure I'm doing things the right way.
3rd floor.
Yeah.
But when it comes to legislative proposals, changes, that kind of stuff, definitely looking to get that stuff moving in a quicker manner.
Please just go to the top.
Get the contest stuff out of the way and then get it enacted for y'all.
Okay.
Empower
Beautiful.
y'all to put what you need in.
Okay. So let
Is
me
there
see.
anything in particular right now that is a pain point that's urgent that needs addressing?
Yes. So about 2 weeks ago, a lot of this kicked off from a audit that was put into place, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks ago now. Things happen, whatever. We had some conversations with the governor, and we had a update to the sorry, I'm pulling up the name.
Yeah, which audit is it?
It is the Legislative Proposal and Approval Process Act. Now, that document was updated into what is now labeled version 1. That has since been approved by all parties. Let me see. Pred says he's going to be here in a little bit. Okay. So version one was.
Point me to the right thing here. I'm on the city hall.
Oh, it should
where it is,
be
or-
in your DOJ emails, I think. I delivered the copies to Arcadia as well as. Oh, I gave it to Arcadia and Hollow. Some context that might be missing here. The audit was proposed, given that all the existing justices at the time were conflicted, having collectively signed them. It went to the SAG department, of which there are many representatives. The governor took. Someone from that office responded, unknown whether it was the governor or not. I don't know if he's ever actually clarified that point. He came in, we had discussion, version 1 of the document was created, which is a legislative proposal process. We then had another discussion afterwards. There was other things that were mentioned in the meeting, things about like voting and like how repeals would work, et cetera, et cetera. That is where version 2 of the legislative proposal and approval process came into play. And so, and that's the one that's currently pending. So version 1's been agreed on.
Please.
Send you a copy?
Yeah, please.
Yep. Can you send me an email and then
I
I'll
just sent you a little thing. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Oh boy. Let me see.
Okay. I will take a look at that and be in touch with you throughout the week on it.
Yeah. So the big thing with that right now is we should have had that. I personally think we should have had that resolved about a week ago. Specifically, the sooner we get this document figured out, it makes it easier for us to resolve everything else, right? Since this discusses everything from, I'm gonna actually let me take another step. We need a better form of communication.
Just as wise, I just highlighted in our internal channels where that is, and that's where the conversation occurs to.
Okay, I'll take a look at all that as well.
Yeah. Might I suggest we need a inter-branch communication email? And the reason I point this out is like this is to nobody's fault. Communication is very difficult to do, right? Different emails, different Discordia subgroups, etc., etc. I would think that we need a way to share this stuff, so I don't have to send it to this person who then sends it to someone else.
Legislative authority channel.
I have a thought on that. Nino, I'll be in touch with you about it.
Okay. All right. Love it.
I think we can get that sorted.
Beautiful. Hell yeah.
Something else that I'm working on anyway.
So
Are you willing to talk about the version 2 right now, Nino? Because I had some thoughts on some parts.
I think we should absolutely. I think we all got to yell in here. By the way,
Yeah, Grayson, if you have thoughts, feel free to share. I don't want to render any decision on it until I talk to the other justices, just because I'm just getting right into it. But if you have thoughts and feedback, go for it.
Like I have nitpicky things, right? I can nitpick all I want. Essentials. In the Department of Justice legislation proposal part, it states that when we propose amendments, additions, removals, repeals to legislation, we have to place it on the docket. Those things would then live on a living document eternally, right? Because you wouldn't move them into closed. You'd leave them open. I'd much prefer if it went into City Hall. I think if they go on the docket, it's going to stuff our docket, which is already a fucking nightmare to deal with every time it goes over one page. And I think if we legislate it has to be on the docket, it'll end up going on the docket.
Can you know where you're making the comment?
You just highlight in there and just make the comment on the doc is probably the easiest way.
Yeah.
Okay, you see that? It's in details and implementation legislation proposals, Department of Justice. The third paragraph down, legislation from the Department of Justice that is enacted as a part of the outcome of a judicial proceeding must be posted on the docket. I don't think the docket's the right
that was
format
meant,
or place for that. Yeah.
I believe the intention was to write City Hall. Let me I'm gonna update this live.
Yeah, that's my major like just workflow issue with what you proposed.
Okay, beautiful. Okay. Yeah, this is there, so this kind of brings an important conversation which I wish this is gonna there's been discussion about whether any branch can remove legislation at will. The reason I bring this up is that was briefly discussed in a meeting between me, Pred, and Arcadia. Fortunately, Pred's not here in Arcadia to go into some of those details, but it was kind of like in the hallway kind of thing. And we have slightly different recollections of the meeting from a week and a half ago. I'm going to bring it up now, but we can wait till another point, or I'll put it in here, which is the impression was that we all agreed that legislation can be instantly repealed simply by putting it up. Whereas my recollection of that conversation was that that if any branch, DOJ, SAMA, or the the two counties wanted to repeal something, it still needs to be posted up on City Hall, providing a period of time for someone to contest it. I not only have that recollection, but I still believe that is something that is necessary. Otherwise, you allow any newly elected or appointed official to shitlord all of legislation.
I completely agree. I also especially think that if a legislation proposal went up and then there was a contest to it, and there was a vote in which the people voted that legislation in, a mayor should not be able to unilaterally remove that legislation at will, like just immediately without any potential contest. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
That's already happened though, right?
That's what I'm saying. Is I don't like that. That doesn't make sense. So I would very much agree with you, Nino, that there should be a contest period for repealing legislation as well. It should be the same 3-day contest period.
Yeah, transparently, the derivation of, and this kind of goes back to why I'm going to be very pressy on we need to get this document sorted because things need to be written, otherwise they shouldn't be happening. Otherwise, it's like everyone in Los Santos has ADHD, fish memory, right? Myself included, to a large extent. So, who's gonna remember who said what, or who misrepresentation, misunderstanding people, right? But let me.
Hello, Pred.
Hey, Pred. Hey, where is he? Oh, hey.
Oh.
So I guess
I think that's Pred. At least.
Yeah, it is.
That
Yeah. Hello.
Oh.
So
My shirt.
Oh yeah, that's how he was dressed at the court case the other day.
Hello, Mayor Pred.
All right.
So I think so
Is the mustache back, Pred?
let me look this up.
It's not hard to grow when you're as masculine as I am.
So true.
While you guys discuss this point, I'm just going to look up what is currently written. The other thing is that this version 1 has not yet been posted up, despite it being agreed on by everybody. It has not updated in the legislation MDT. So the question is, well, what are the next steps? Like, who's going to do it? Should I do it? Who's going to sign it? Et cetera, et cetera. I think it's ready to go, but I need everyone's signatures who is signing off on this.
I will throw it to the justices. I've already tossed it there, so I'm just waiting on a couple things. And like I said, we'll get that done urgently. That's top of the list.
Yep.
That followed by the contest period, followed by the intercommunication email thing. What else we got?
Give me just a moment. I'm just going through V1 and V2 and just making sure that there's no pain points. But if anyone wants to, while I'm looking at this, does anyone want to bring up anything regarding legislative proposal and approval process, either version 1 or version 2?
Do we establish amending legislation?
In what way?
Like how we're going to go about it? It's like the same process as before.
I would
The
imagine it would
goes
be
up for contest.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
same
there's
process,
no
whether
other-
it is added, amended, or potentially being repealed. I think you just go through the same contest period process. Makes it clean and easy. No confusion about what this one does this way, but the other one is this way. It's just all that goes the same way. Everything goes to a 3-day contest period. Everybody has a chance to object to whatever.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Yes. All right.
Easy.
Yeah, and I just
I will
got
confirm that with the justices and get it rolling. Go ahead, Nino.
And I just got clarity that V1 does describe it with a 3-day window as we just discussed. So
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And what V2 does not, you're saying?
V2 has not we have not received there's been no feedback on it.
Okay. We'll cook on that. I'll see if I can get feedback on 2 and get that incorporated. If not, we'll just roll with 1 for now and then wait for 2.
Yep. So V1 primarily focused on clarifying that the DOJ had to follow the same process the other branches do, which is, hey, they were going to propose something. It passes a constitutionality check, which y'all are doing internally instead of publicly on the, City Hall. And then it goes into a 3-day contest period, yada, yada. And version 2 sort of expands beyond some of those boundaries to try to, make things a little bit more efficient.
So I know obviously you guys had a lot of discussion on that. I didn't necessarily get a chance to provide input. What are thoughts in regard to emergency situations? So, for example, one day the cargo ship started rolling in, right? And started delivering things and people started robbing it, right?
Yeah.
In the event that something like that happens again, where a criminal charge needs to get added to the penal code for such a thing to reflect it, if it's not currently covered by any of the charges, do we really want to just have it be where there's a 3-day contest period? Potentially people that are involved in that would want to delay us as long as possible in implementing this new statute. Do we want to just leave that crime unchecked while that process happens? Versus the whole reason why DOJ originally could just kind of do things at will was essentially that, just to be able to enact new criminal charges to respond to things that are thrown at us without any warning.
I think you're talking about, are we talking about a state of emergency or the ability to change crime, fine, etc. off the bat?
Well, so for example, when the cargo ship rolled in, right, it did not fit into the definition of any criminal charge in in terms of robbery. It was not considered a high security institution, low security institution, none of that. We had to create the maritime piracy charge in order to address that particular issue in crime.
This seems to be covered by me in the marshals and correctional officers thing. When you look at the San Andreas State Marshals may declare a state of emergency at the discretion of the overseeing justice should the rule of law be threatened. So the first point is total breakdown and ability of the existing law enforcement agencies to enforce the law or stop a threat to the state of San Andreas. Emergency provisions are provided for legislatively already.
I think when we said emergency, he means like something coming up. The
What if it's
blur,
not a
like
smaller, like, there's a new some new but I don't know, some new crime that we're not currently charging for and is not currently addressed by the penal code that just kind of pops up.
A new drug, for example.
Well, drug it goes through scheduling of
Yeah,
the hospital, so that's a little different.
Mm.
I thought
Um,
this versions just took care of legislation, not charges. Wouldn't
So
it be
if
that
we're making
charges are
that
still...
distinction, that's fine.
Mhm.
As long like
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the DOJ
Um,
has the ability to enact charges. Obviously, they can be contested, and there should be a very clear communication pathway that immediately upon it being changed, here is what changed, the exact date and time of the change, so that people are aware of what the law was before the law change happened and after. Because no ex post facto, right? That's not and something that
Yeah.
we intend to do in any way, shape, or form.
Constitutionality wise, we're under the purview that we can enact laws after judicial action, right? So after a court case, after somebody presses a charge, after somebody fails. So like I'm generally the thing, if something new comes in, something that I know, a brand new fucking militaristic weapon that isn't covered by anything else that we've got, then somebody drags it to court under best faith argument they can, under whatever they've got, they fail, and then we institute a new law directly then.
That's fair. I mean, so for example, right now, just something I'm looking at is the possession of government issued equipment. There's a new item in the police armory that just, started being available to police. And we can amend the wording on that to make it encompass anything from the state armories, even if it's not specifically listed in the charge, so we don't have to keep updating it every time there's a new thing in the armory.
Do it by
But
case law,
as of
yeah.
right now, the heavy pistol from the PD armory is missing from that charge. And so
That's why I'm
that
carrying
is
one right
a
now,
perfect
actually.
example of a quick thing that DOJ should be able to just amend that charge, add heavy
Wait,
pistol,
no one said
and let
anything.
people know, hey, heavy pistol is now added in that. I'm saying we can fix it to where the charge is better worded to encompass
I said
this
that in
without having
game,
to
right?
change it.
Nobody stopped.
But this is just being used as an example right here, right now.
Yeah.
As
I
something
can
where
carry one
we
of these
should be able
around,
to-
right?
A heavy pistol?
Yeah.
I mean, as of right now, it is not illegal to possess that item.
I'm just fucking
I
with you guys.
mean,
I'm
doesn't the gun license legislation say you only own to meet and buy ammunition?
You can
in
only
1911?
purchase M1911.
That's the only thing that your license is. So you're not licensed
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
If
So-
I may, really quickly, I do feel a bit uncomfortable just outright allowing some form of unfettered changing to happen. While I do respect that people are going to try to work within good faith on a situation and try to actually do what is best for the city as a whole, we have had the experience of what that ends up doing if it's misused. So I would want to see some form of restrictions placed on it where it's only used in specific situations, at which point then I'd feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I think
the biggest issue before was that it wasn't being communicated, right? Like these changes were happening and just nobody knew that this shit happened.
No. The biggest issue was someone getting drunk with power and changing the law to fit their...
Checks and balances, right?
Yeah.
Checks and balances. Why don't you just call a meeting of the legislative bodies, have a vote, and move on?
Well, so we're talking strictly about penal code, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that I think this is I think we need more of the justices for this conversation, in my opinion. I think it's a good one to think about and say this is going to be a topic of discussion for next week. So we have the week to individually, right, cook, right, bring it to the table, because otherwise we're at risk of workshopping a very big topic for probably the remainder of the meeting. Is that pretty fair?
Yep, I'm good to discuss penal code in the next one.
And I don't want to necessarily dictate how these meetings go, but as a big meeting guy, I'm a big fan of we know what the agenda is for the next meeting, right? Or any issues. So we come in with it prepared so that we're very efficient in this, in these meetings.
I'm good with that.
So can we?
Yeah, we'll chat more on the penal code next week. That's fine.
Beautiful. With that said, I'm going to, is there someone that can act as a scribe to just take note of what we're going to discuss, what we discussed today, and then what we plan to discuss next week so we can send that out to everybody afterwards? So we,
One of the folks over there taking notes can do that for this week. I'm working on
Okay.
expanding the clerk program to
Okay.
handle things like that. So
Beautiful.
hopefully I'll have a gaggle of clerks with me at the next meeting.
Beautiful. Archie, are you able to make notes of that?
I've already been writing notes, so I'm getting
Beautiful.
Easy.
Archie did put together a 26-page document that highlights each and every charge.
It's 9 now.
I'm sorry?
It's 9 now.
Well, you still have the old one though, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Beautiful. So the entire penal code was gone through alongside citing every reference to what enacts it, right? What the legislative backing of it is. I'll have Archie send that to everybody here. It might help with the conversation next week.
Excellent.
Yep. Okay.
I'm just reading your version 2.
Mhm.
In the public contest period, I'm looking for a definition or a defined period from which the public contest begins. The way I'm reading it right now, it just begins the moment it hits the docket, right? Because traditionally it's been once a justice accepts notification of it, but that's been a major roadblock.
Correct.
So it's just, it hits the docket and then 72 hours, that's it.
Correct.
There's no notice of receipt.
Yep.
There's no emergency. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you could maybe do with making that absolutely bluntly obvious.
Can you put that note in there? And that kind of goes for everyone in the room, is that anything revolving V2 of this should be in there. And I think by next week, we lock this in. This should have been locked in today.
Yeah.
But,
If I had more
understandably,
justices, I could. But yeah, we'll hopefully we'll go through it this week. I'm just getting the opportunity to read this stuff for the first time and provide feedback. So I will
absolutely
do so, and then we'll handle it next week. Is probably the best thing. If I can do it in the midweek and we can get in touch with each other and get it done, then I'm all for it.
Okay, love it.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And the other two audits, that was something that was, I think, aimed for discussion today. Some historical background. These audits have, alongside this one, have been kind of in limbo for about 2 months now. Now, I stop by saying, I do not hold any of this against anybody in this room. Things happened, things slowed down, whatever. Nobody no one is going to inherit the blame of the past. However, there are 3 audits: the FOIA audit, the powers of the marshals, Angel Act, et cetera, that need moving forward on. An audit, from what our understanding is something that results in a audit hearing relatively quickly. The only reason we kind of pushed it out is given this document and other conversations with the governor. But I think we need to cement in what the next step here is.
Where are these audits?
In
they just
the hand of the
given
DOJ in some
okay.
fashion.
All right. I'll get them.
Yep.
That's fine.
I'm going to restate, and I'd like to hear from the other legislative branches. Why are we not just rolling this back to the day of the election prior to all the heinous shadow edits that took place? Because if it is going to take us an entire term to roll back a bunch of dog shit just to do it quote unquote kosher, this is the opposite of efficient, because it's going to be an entire term where people's rights are violated.
Okay, so on the FOIA one, the goal is to get rid of the fee that was added, right? It's the main issue.
Main issue is, I would say that anything that was added, that was edited in, should be removed. I mean, there may be some justification behind some of the wording in there, but I don't see the value of any of it, to be honest. Yeah.
If I may, Nino?
Yeah.
In addition to the fees that were added on there, there's a lot of burden put on the requester, especially since the verbiage added in there is not only including the fee, but it's burden on the requester to figure out which department to ask when they don't have that information on hand, especially since people arrested can be divided up into and processed into 2 different police stations, while only one of them are the primary on the report. And also there's also requirements in the changes that requires them to put forth why they are requesting these specific FOIAs, and is subject to the departments to approve it based on their subjective reasoning and understanding of the requester's reasons.
So
what are your thoughts on whether, because I think the biggest issue with some of that, obviously the concern that was brought up that those things were enacted to address was the abuse of the system in requesting an ungodly number of reports for things that you never intend to actually do anything with, right?
Here's the thing, though, Weiss. Angel was talking out of her ass. That FOIA update happened about 8 hours after I requested FOIAs for 4 months, after I had drones following me around. And having now, after about 2 months, finally received my FOIAs, looking over these reports, this is actually just severe harassment. And I am beside myself with some of these reports. Every reason that's been cited as to why that alteration was made purely came off the belief by Angel, standing right here with Pred as a witness, that she believed I did this out of abuse. I simply requested 4 months of my documentations.
But
now,
do you understand how if everybody did that, that'd be a fucking nightmare, right?
No.
Like,
unfortunately,
and hold on. I want to get while I can understand that if everybody did this thing, right, that would be an issue. But the problem here is this is people's rights to their information in order to defend themselves. And so there may be some solutions to rectifying those things. But the thing is, if the attempted rectification is under what was through, like, over a knee-jerk reaction, none of that should be considered. We should be starting from square one. Is this a problem to begin with? What kind of problem is it specifically? As most people like myself request these things because we have allegations thrown our way or we need a civil lawsuit. Consider criminal negligence of a firearm. The only way that someone can properly defend against that is by requesting a ton of documentation. So I wouldn't say that the requester is ever going to be at fault. It's the rest of the gears that are an issue, be it CNAF, be it some of the exclusionary rules around statutory limitations. You get what I'm saying? And I don't think
that
it
was
should
what I was
be...
about to get into is with SOL, unless there's an active case in which it can be requested, obviously by the judge overseeing that case, for that information to be released in that particular matter. What is the benefit of requesting records that are older than 30 days?
For
no charges or anything can be brought against you if
court
you know what I mean?
cases, civil court action.
Yep.
But evidence that's older than 30 days. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, certain things just. I mean,
but if there's a court case, it doesn't need to go through FOIA. That you could motion for it to be produced on that docket if that court case has been opened in that particular matter.
Well, it's not just that. There's impeachments, there's ACRs, there is civil matters, there is using it for a pattern of abuse. I mean, and I would argue that let me use my example, right? I had to wait over the statute of limitation in order to get my information. And by using, the lens should be from the civilian, not the other way around. Otherwise, someone like myself who receives their, FOIA a month later cannot take any civil action, despite very clear cases of,
delayed discovery and whatnot. Okay,
exactly.
But even if it's delayed discovery, you'd still be filing a suit, but you need the information to get it. Okay. I'll keep this in mind as well. One other thought that we potentially had and want to get input on, is rather than having to approach the departments to do that specifically, the idea of building out a more robust, beyond just what are county clerks that are issuing licenses within our end, state clerks that would also be responsible for handling FOIA notifications.
Yeah.
That way, it takes a little
did
bit
used
of
to be
it.
used by the dispatch system, right? The dispatchers used to do it internally.
Yeah, but
just
even the
to
dispatch were
respond.
under the arm of the law
Mhm.
enforcement agencies. This would
Where
be
is
more
it?
of the under the arm of the Department of Justice, where the FOIA requests come in through our clerks and then go out to the law enforcement agencies. So it's a bit more of an independent process.
That might work
than
better
it has
because
to.
systemically, just what I was getting at before was it's failed, right? Systemically, because the way the legislation's been
That a
rewritten,
data analyst? I
meant,
know.
lawyers are meant to pay upon delivery, right?
There would
They're
be
meant
no
to pay
fee. There
upon
would be no
delivery.
fee.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons it really needs looking at right now, because systemically, the way it works right now, they're meant to pay upon delivery, but because PD delivers remotely, they're demanding fee on receipt of the FOIA, on the request of the FOIA. So they're requesting payment outside of like the legislative provision. The lawyers are paying early, and then if they don't get anything back, they're also not getting like reimbursed for the failed FOIA request.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a shit show just on the ground level, just for the lawyers. I'm sure Tony knows all about this.
No, that wouldn't be a problem at all. These people would be paid by the DOJ, and there would not be a fee for FOIAs. It would be free. It would go back to essentially the. So what I'm saying is, I want to find a safeguard that we can to give a little bit of a guardrail to the idea that anybody can just go request all of their records for all of their history and time, just because, for no actual reason.
I love what you're saying, Weiss, but we have to remember that this is an audit on the constitutionality. And as it is currently written, we are alleging that the shadow edited FOIA legislation is inherently unconstitutional, as it goes against the right of information. Now, I do think that it behooves us to rectify this first by removing all these, I'm just going to call it fucking dog shit, and then all these concerns you're bringing up, rightfully so, which I agree with, is something that should be proposed as a amendment and alteration as a next stage, right? So
The thing is, a lot of the stuff was submitted like vindictively, right? Like,
Yeah.
powers were codified the day before I get into office, as well as other limitations. The day afterwards, all of a sudden, the voting process, when I was campaigning on getting it changed, is changed so that it can't be contested, and it's in the judicial like oversight. Like, there's so many instances over this. Like, for me particularly, looking over the legislation and the changes, because I'm the direct victim of it. You know, I'm the one that has to that was targeted through a bunch of legislation.
So with regard to the FOIA one specifically and the contest to the right of information, I do want to point out that the Constitution does state that citizens have the right to access public information necessary for their well-being.
Yep.
So without doing, I'm just going to do a full review of this, but just a gut opinion for the purposes of trying to figure out a solution post this contest and more just a long-term fix for this problem. It seems to me it would make sense that the government would have some sort of mechanism by which to verify that the information is in fact necessary for their well-being.
Yeah,
I could see how that could be subjective, but like I said, that's where I want to, in terms of the constitutionality of it, I think trying to find a solution here that works for everyone is a better way than just determining whether the existing stuff fits within the line of determining necessity for their well-being.
So
I think what he means with unconstitutional is not what it stands, but how it was done, right?
It's both. Yeah.
The whole thing is, yes, if you guys think there's a need for certain some of those changes, then that's okay. But the idea would be roll it back fully because it was done in bad faith, and then do the changes that you find needed and go through the normal,
Yeah.
process for it.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
All
'Cause
right, I'll chat that with the justices.
Yeah. So I would like, I think by, and I'd like to hear from Fred and Dr. Nye on this, but I would like, I think before Sunday, for at least us to get a heads up, are we reverting this document and then separately through the DOJ or whatever legislative body amending in some of those safeguards that may or may not be a problem, right? Or like, are we going to go through a regular audit? Because I would take that second option if we cannot resolve this. Keep in mind, from Judge Voice, I know you're just getting into this, but this is, from our lens, 2 months where people have, it's been made impossible to get FOIAs, and that's not a good system at all.
No, I understand the urgency. I do appreciate y'all working with me, knowing that I haven't been in the depths of this for more than a couple days.
Yep.
So like I said, I do appreciate y'all working with me, and put, it's difficult, but a little bit of a reset and give me a little bit of time to get this under my realm and wing and get caught up on all this so I can get it moving.
Absolutely.
I do want to get it moving for y'all and keep this a much faster process in the future. There is going to be some stuff that we have to play catch up on. I know it's going to be rough for a little bit, but I'm going to get done as quickly as I can.
Absolutely. And I just want one last thing. I just want to
on the list. Yeah.
One other thing I want to point out is why we should. Another reason why we should roll it back is you could come up with, hey, we're thinking about these changes. This works for the DOJ, and we may end up debating it for 3 weeks while the FOIA sits where it is.
No, I was hoping to get a quick resolution if we all agree on, but if it's something that ends up to debate, then I would agree that we would
exactly
do something in the meantime.
Simple, and then comes the complex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I have the simple way for us to do the whole FOIA system. They're given 72 hours to handle it themselves, and then if they don't handle it themselves, then a member of the judiciary just hands over the report. And no one's to blame but police negligence, right?
That's the problem, though, Brad. That is how it is. They got, but it wasn't being done. To give everyone some further context, a very brave judge that knows how to do that stepped up, went and helped me get FOIAs that were due 6 weeks ago, and the individual that fulfilled it would manage to do it within 48 hours. So
I think it's kind of falling on us to bring back the faith in the political sphere of Los Santos again. Like things just don't look good from an outside lens, and more people are aware of the issues than just us. You know what I mean? Like, it's a citywide thing. We kind of have an opportunity here, not to like redo the system, but to just simply fix the system, and it's something that we could probably do relatively quick as well, and we could do it the right way.
Yeah, the same mindset.
Okay, hell yeah.
Kyle Pred saves the world of politics. I can see the headline now. I'm going to be Time Man of the Year.
Okay.
So proud.
So the
same. Maybe choose a different shirt for the photo of your cover.
Hey, I was selling used cars. This is how a used car salesman looks.
You moonlight as a used car salesman as the mayor.
You also roll that to
I gotta make money somehow. Uncle Bobby B. Transformers 1. Bernie Mac.
All right. What else is on the agenda for today?
Then we have
that was the first one, the FOIA, and then what is the third audit that is pending?
It's going to be the Angel and Marshall and DOC.
What part of that is being contested?
The entirety of the edits that were put in. Which, by the way, I learned only via my FOIAs was a consequence of lies, and I've got the entire timeline of how that took place. So,
what are the changes that were put into it?
Let me get the diff.
Was it the marshals can hire, fire, all that stuff?
Correct. Yep.
Does the audits of these, do they have the like side by side wording changes so that it's very obvious?
No, but that's something that, if you pull up the report, you can run a diff on it.
Yeah.
I think it's the stuff in the white
It's
text.
bold. It's bolded. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, if these changes, when it comes to the FOIA, and I don't want to speak for everyone here, but when it comes to the FOIA and the Marshall change and stuff, my hard stance is it gets reverted or we go through a regular audit process. And the reason for my stance is I now have evidence of maliciousness with timestamps, with reports that tell an entire story. And I rather not that have to be brought up in court and we wait, etc. Instead of get this shit all behind us and then actually progress it forward. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to even consider that these edits were anything more, anything less than malicious.
Okay. I don't want to, whether or not the marshals have authority over the other branches, I'm going to determine that I am conflicted on, given the position that I have been appointed to.
That was
and I'm
clarified.
going to refrain from commenting.
Of course. And I will say that we were all present here when that clarity was given. I am the boss. I am the mayor of Los Santos County. Fred is the mayor of Blaine County, and any future mayor. We have oversight over the governance, et cetera, et cetera. None of that is referenced. Like, I don't know where the fuck that was derived from outside of copium, to be honest. And
it was just another attempt to further diminish our power and authority.
But you guys don't. So just to be clear, though, you guys don't have power over the police departments, right? You have the ability to appoint the head of the chief of police and sheriff, respectively, but then they have the authority to oversee their departments. Not necessarily you guys have authority to oversee the police departments in their day-to-day operations.
We do, and that was clarified by the governor and by the very clear writing in the Constitution. And I can iterate this, but
doesn't it separate that out?
No, it doesn't, because through I'll go ahead and read it. Los Santos County shall have the legislative authority over its jurisdiction and be responsible for the governance, public services, and local laws that pertain to the residents and operations within Santos. The Los Santos mayor is responsible for the governance of Los Santos laws, and Los Santos Police Department is responsible for the county's public services. The chief of police shall be appointed by the Los Santos County mayor. Now, this enters into the very similar debate that transpired revolving, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was over the repeal of Pred's legislation. And it's the conclusion with the governor here in this very room twice over is that, yes, we oversee these departments, as with every civilized Western country where they're, yes, we appoint them, but we, the voice of the people, need to be driving the direction of those departments. Now, does that mean we can go in there and say...
That is through your legislative authority, doesn't it? That's not necessarily through your... That doesn't give you authority to mandate their day-to-day operations. You have legislative authority over your jurisdiction and the public services. And then it says... The Blaine County Sheriff's Office and Los Santos Police Department, respectively, for each county, is responsible for the county's public services.
I think instead of reopening the debate there, Weiss, I would consult with the justices on the matter first and foremost, who are present in the meeting, as we've already resolved this. Now, I do think that there's some pollution in the waters that from a justice that no longer... Listen, Justice Angel polluted a lot of dumb shit, all right? And if you take that... I don't mean to be offensive. If you take that offensively, my apologies, but a lot of us in this room were abused through it. But that's the reality that we live in and the position we're coming from. And on this particular topic, I think it's rather closed. Now, I'm open to reopen that topic, but I think it would be kind of spinning our wheels back to where we were a week or two ago.
Yeah, I'll chat with them, see what's transpired. I mean, just from a reasonability standpoint, do you guys think it makes sense for you to have day-to-day operational authority over the police in your respective
jurisdictions? Can I chime in
jurisdictions?
real quick?
Sure.
All right, so so I'm going to speak like theoretically, right?
Okay.
So it states that we pick who's in charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that says that I can't remove them for disagreeing with me or refusing to work with me.
But do you see how that does that? I don't like that. That seems wrong. Do you disagree?
Well, I mean,
I think
we agree with what's in the Constitution, right?
Well, I'm saying potentially we could talk about,
here, one second,
and I
one
believe
second.
it was the governor said we could.
Here, let me
potentially
finish
amend the
making my
Constitution
point.
if needed. Go ahead.
So I didn't even step that boundary line even when I was dealing with all the shit up in Blaine County, right? And I dealt with a lot of shit with them. I gave them 6 weeks almost to work with me to propose things, you know, like I gave them the chance. And I would imagine that anybody in my position would probably not have given them a chance as long as I did. Right? It comes down to like how hold on, that's my phone.
Oh.
Time to wake up,
I
Fred.
think that we
I need to grab my
the
coffee.
way I look at it is I am in charge of them. And I can dictate things and I can remove the sheriff if I want to and put in someone that I want. Like under any grounds. It doesn't have to be and I know that sounds like bad, but it hasn't been abused by Nino. It hasn't been abused by me or any previous mayors. I just think it has to be like understood that if I can pick who's in charge, if Nino can pick who's in charge, then guess who's in charge? It's us.
But I guess it doesn't make sense for just because they disagree with you. I guess without cause, it doesn't make sense for you to just remove a chief of police or a sheriff
1,000%.
without cause.
If Daisy
I don't
pisses
think
me
it's
off,
good
I
to
can
do,
get rid
but
of her.
you
Yeah.
can do it. Yeah, I like.
Yeah,
I
if
don't
she
think
thinks
it's like
my
you
ring
can't be
isn't big
removing
enough,
them.
you know
But
what I
that's
mean?
you can't just be
that's a
removing someone
concern, right?
every
Because then
day.
how do they have any independence in potentially investigating you for a crime if you can just remove them
don't.
under threat? That doesn't make any
So
that makes you above the
no.
law.
Wait,
hold on,
wait.
hold on. Tony, no, hold on. Just so we don't turn this into a bigger debate, this topic was closed already. I think reopening it is. I think we could do that separately, unless we all want to talk about it again. But we had this. This is reopening up. Last week's debate, which I don't got the energy for. Do you guys want to talk about this?
We can table it and do it another time, but it is
Right.
definitely something I want to
Let's
discuss
move
because
on.
I don't think that power is appropriate.
You know, okay, all right.
But if we don't want to do it right now, we can obviously I do. You said there was previous conversation on it. I want to get read in on that, the reasoning behind that, what was already discussed, and then we can discuss it further.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of how to proceed with that particular audit, I would say we probably just proceed with the audit on that. I'll read it, and obviously I won't give any input on it given the scope of the matter and with regard to the martial part, and I will make sure the justices get that addressed in short order.
Okay, so do you not have to discuss with the rest of them as to whether it's going to be reverted back, or is this your...
my opinion is it should go back. I'm going to raise it to them whether they want to just revert it. My guess is going to be probably it'll just proceed with the audit. But like I said, I'm not going to put a vote or my opinion into that as to which way it should go. I'll just refer it to the justices. Look at that.
Oh my God. Thank God.
That was wild. I'm leaving. No, that was crazy.
Oh my God.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, pal.
Hello.
All right.
Topic of discussion right now is the audit of the Marshall and DOC Act.
Oh, amazing. I know we haven't had a chance to look at it too much because we're still talking about the FOIA stuff.
Yeah. So Nino was looking for essentially a decision from the justices whether to just revert it or to actually proceed with the audit. I'm going to refrain. I was going to raise it to the rest of the justices for y'all to decide, but given the Marshall position I've been appointed to, I'm probably going to refrain.
I think the DOJ doesn't know what the fuck they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And no one is telling them. They're making it up as they go.
I'll talk about it with her now.
It becomes, it's not their faults, but someone's got to figure out
what do you mean
tell them what the fuck they need to be doing.
I didn't make it official. I said you had my vote. I wouldn't have the votes of the other justices.
Sorry, Hart and Hallow did come in and a unanimous vote was given. Yes.
No one's responsible because they're all responsible is the issue.
Okay, well that makes sense then. That's fine. So then we still haven't really had the
and it's
chance,
not their fault
considering all the
either, but
changes,
it's just
to really deep dive into that one.
I don't know how to
Considering
tackle
the
it.
change, I would ask that we have a bit of grace, because there's gonna be new things happening with the marshals anyways. It might be just for everyone's benefit that we put a pause on that one for just like maybe a week or so until we give Weiss an opportunity to look things over. Because I'm sure he'll have some insight as well.
My counter argument for both the FOIA and the Marshall one is that there is now evidence indicating that they were both done maliciously, and that there is no value in continuing maintaining the alterations, and instead they be reverted, and anything that needs to be changed, and to fill you in, like we discussed, should there be safeguards from things that people theoretically could do to abuse a FOIA, right? Those are things that should be discussed and amended in at a later point through the processes we have. And the same can be done with the Marshall document. And I'm coming from the position of, while I appreciate what's happening with Weiss and DOJ, the rest of the populace, like, shouldn't have to wait on the internal changes that are happening in the DOJ. Does that make sense?
But everything that's happening is fairly drastic. We're having a complete changeover of leadership. There has to be an understanding.
And
we've been doing the best we can.
We can
And listen, I'm talking from a place of I've agreed with you in the rollbacks, right? But I also want to make sure we're giving opportunities, especially considering the time of year.
So, but if you roll back, right, then anything that needs to change can get proposed when you guys are ready.
I can promise you that we've discussed the rollback and it's not happening.
Okay. So for the FOIA, like, why not roll it back? Like, can we get a reason?
1 second. Let me bring up some of the other arguments. If you guys want to keep discussing, just give me a moment.
Yeah. I think I think we having a good reason for it would be nice as opposed to a no, right?
I wasn't the one who said the no, so I want to make sure I give you a valid argument. Can you just? I need a moment to look through what was discussed.
Oh my God.
Weiss, wasn't it one of the biggest arguments that there was other things added into the legislation that was counterintuitive? Yeah, just the fee.
Yeah, so the fee, that's what we were essentially talking about last, was that the fee doesn't, I don't like the fee. I don't even mind immediately suspending the fee.
I don't think these guys understand that nobody, the DOJ is not the fucking city.
That's what I was saying, going towards the argument of, I personally believe that there is a reasonable limit to where the government has the authority to determine whether, constitutionally, whether or not something fits the definition of being necessary for somebody's well-being. And just simply asking that somebody provide a reason for the request is not an unnecessary or unreasonable burden to overclimb in order to request their records or determine necessity for
Well, the issue with that is who's to decide what the bar is, right? When it comes to getting information. I mean, because there could be stuff going on with me. I don't even know the existence of it or all of it, but I have the right to the information, just like they have the right to deny me the information if it's currently an investigation. I mean,
then you do take it to a judge. So at any point, I think this is what you just said a moment ago, Kyle, was, that you requested, if they deny it for whatever reason and you disagree with that denial, you just go to a judge.
I know.
But if a judge needs to find a order to pop on the docket.
Okay.
Yeah. So simple.
Well,
the judges are who is the arbiter of whether this gets released? Just a judge.
I'm leaving the room right now because I'm angry. Not because I have other obligations that are conveniently falling upon this time. I want you to know that. I want you to know that I got my eye on everybody. I got this eye. This eye's a wandering. Both of them.
This is
I got
very
everything going.
overall disappointing by the DOJ.
I got little dubs flying around everywhere.
I don't know how they can't figure this shit out as quick, and why there's always an excuse.
Because I'm angry.
I don't.
Of course.
Man, how much time do they need to do anything? I don't understand.
Okay. And then yeah, hopefully the concept of potentially
it's-
the state clerk and all that's been
Yeah.
in discussion, and them taking over the FOIA process should bring a breadth of reasonability to that, and also not
Yeah,
necessarily
like
disclose to the
this happened, this
agency.
bro.
that
But
is
they've been new for 2
releasing
weeks
it
now. These
the exact reason. For
how long
which
does
this
it
is
take
being
to read a
requested, so
singular
that that
document? I don't
review
understand.
of whether or not it is necessary or reasonable is at least at first glance done by a
Bro, this is
more
gonna be till the
independent
end
party
of
than the
yeah.
releasing
I already
agency
can
would be
tell
by a
this is a
state
waste.
clerk, and if denied,
waste
could
of
be
time.
appealed up to a judge.
But
and
they didn't
ultimately
bring
to a
anything
justice,
to the potluck. Is the problem?
if so necessary.
Yeah.
I don't like the fee. I think the idea that somebody has to pay a fee for their records is not a reasonable burden given what is written in the Constitution. And I would be all for this. Is my personal
There's
vote,
no
would be all for
comments in the
suspending
Google
that
Doc.
immediately.
So
I think all the justices have agreed on that front from the conversation we had, which I can't seem to freaking find. We all agreed that the fine we definitely want to get rid of, but there was other aspects of the legislation that would be counterintuitive to roll it back completely.
Or just not necessarily or inherently unconstitutional. Like I think that specifically that being the requirement that they provide.
here's I think the DOJ is obviously going to have an opinion on it. I think as next week, by next Sunday, I think if you guys come with a joint opinion, like, you know, comments in the document, we can kind of go from there. But we like I said, like you know, our three
are you good with
legislative.
us suspending the fee immediately? Because I know that is a pain point for a lot of people. So while in between now and next week, are you good with us suspending the requirement that any fees be paid for FOIA requests?
Yeah, I mean, I think really, I think my expectation is that these documents that we've provided, they just, you know, put your comments in it so we know what to discuss, right? But opening up the entire topic for debate, I don't think really moves us forward because we've already given our opinion via the document, right? That the three of us have
No, I
signed.
understand. That's what I'm saying. We are going to add those comments and respond to those documents
Yeah.
in the coming days and prepare for that conversation to be next week. As a stopgap interim, we've pretty much. I'm offering this as an option, assuming we can all come to an agreement that it makes sense to suspend the paying of fees in between now and whenever those comments get made, or next week, or when we discuss this and get it
feels far better in good faith than anything else at the moment.
That's all I'm trying to
If you're wanting to talk about being efficient and getting things out to the populace, that's right there a very solid solution.
It's not
for the time being, of course.
I'm just going to point this out. Next week is going to be the 23rd, right? Like, for the Europeans in the room.
Oh,
like you're going to be right at Christmas.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying.
Right now, it would be the 23rd for me.
Yeah, I mean, we'll still hold the meeting. To Nino's point, I think once we set a hard meeting time, those meetings happen, hell or high water. Whoever shows up to them shows up to them. An understanding that obviously, with that being 2 days before Christmas, the attendance at that meeting is like probably going to be light.
Yeah.
But hopefully, in between now and then, we can have comments and that, so that each of the people coming to represent their various department or faction or whatever are prepared to speak on these topics in a manner in which they can reach a resolution without necessarily everybody having to be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think whatever the DOJ needs to conclude on collectively as to what their opinion is, I think is what needs to be done. And I want to once again reiterate my point here is that 3 out of 4 of us are already set, right? So whatever your collective opinion is, y'all should come with that, right? Otherwise, it's going to be a hour-plus debate on a number of points. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think, again, we will compile those thoughts, get them in the document, but
there you
at some point we're going to have to hash out anything that is of contention, right? So that's essentially what the next meeting will have to be. We need to come with you guys have your thoughts as you're in the document. We will put our comments and thoughts as well. I'm assuming you guys will probably have additional thoughts and comments based on our thoughts and comments. So whoever is coming to next week's meeting, understanding that it's going to be just before Christmas and some people will probably be missing, internally, as you know, as we add those comments and have feedback to those comments, let's make sure whoever comes to next week's meeting is prepared to speak on those topics.
I mean, the alternative is because correct me if I'm wrong, but this meeting is kind of like a touching base point, right? Not a every week we do this. What if we get the comments in the next 48 hours for the FOIA stuff? Is that reasonable?
I can say that on my end, I will have it done in 48 hours. I can't. I don't know the other justices.
That's the thing. Like I've had this done, but I can't speak for the other justices.
The problem that, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the thing is, like, we have the benefit of, like, you know, I speak for one county, Pred speaks for his county, Naya speaks for the you know, medical staff. But with the justices, you have a lot of different opinions that may be different, right? So how is it? How do we approach this? Is my concern is that, you know, whatever topic comes up, there's always gonna be someone that we're gonna need to be waiting on.
I mean, ideally, the majority. So again, we're looking to expand to 5. Once we have 5, the idea is that the majority of the justices would ideally be available for these things, or at least readily available to give input and provide decisions. And these do not need to be unanimous decisions amongst the justices. We work on a majority basis, except for a handful of things that require a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
Can I
and
also
so that would be it. Is our goal would be to have a majority of the justices at these meetings, so that from the DOJ side we can give our opinion, and obviously for very obvious, you know, clear reasons, that power is not enshrined in one individual within the Department of Justice, because that's
right?
there's
Well,
no
that and
widespread
also
against
this
multiple of us.
whole, you know, these audits have heavily to do with our department, and we need the voices of our department. I mean, like, we've been expediting stuff for the county, we've been expediting stuff. You know, Nia, I've worked with you on your legislation. We're doing everything we can outside of that purview, but we do need, when it talks to the FOIAs, you know, the Angel Act, that's heavily invested into our department. We need them. I know it's a rough spot, but we are also coming up with compromises, like what I said, with the, you know, in the meantime, figuring out to, you know, eliminate the fine. We're doing what we can here, but we it's not like we can just not acknowledge.
I think the reason
justices.
I think the reason why it doesn't seem like a compromise is, I when I ask why are these not reverted, right, and that we're hearing we're not going to revert them, but without hearing the why, it sounds like there isn't actually a reason, right? And I think in order to compromise, it's important for the rest of us to understand why that reversion can't take place, right?
Because I already told you, there's other aspects of the legislation that doesn't just have to do with the fee.
Okay, but so you may not have been present here when I first gave my reasoning for it. Is the changes that came in to the FOIA demonstratively with evidence, with, you know, another member like myself and Pred being present, that alteration came, number one, at the helm of myself requesting a FOIA, and 6 hours later it got edited. So whatever thought went behind those alterations, there wasn't a lot of thought put behind it to begin with. So reverting it back to what was in place, and all these concerns that you are bringing up, like, hey, what if someone abuses it and this and that, can be done through the proper channel. Like, you know, it's not like this is like hours worth of work that someone put in. It was a knee-jerk change. It was put in through abuse, right? And the same can be said with the Marshall legislation, and I can give you the reference. I have the Marshall reports right here that paint the timeline that led to the Marshall document being updated. So
has that argument in writing somewhere and been presented?
I have just received the FOIAs, and I'm looking at the timestamps.
Thank God. I'm glad
I think
finally got
that's
settled.
part of that, all that being heard is a very important part of it. Like, I think just as you're saying that it was inappropriate for it to have been edited on the fly and put in, I think it would be inappropriate for us to just roll it back just because, without any and based on verbal discussions, without a written basis for why that is being audited and then ultimately rolled back.
But it's not just because, it's because it was done in bad faith.
But where's the proof of that? I mean, you guys are telling me that, but like that's an argument that needs to get made and properly presented.
Isn't
It
that
can't
all
just
the
be
audit request?
conjecture.
Well, I mean,
That
so to give you some history here, Vice, right? This was originally an audit, right? These were audits, and those audits result in a hearing. But the compromise that we, the signees, are giving is that we can discuss this and come to a resolution instead of going through an entire audit hearing, which would require the governor and the state officials to oversee. That's why the compromise of discussion came into play. We're the ones auditing it, and we're saying we'll compromise through, through discussion, right?
But the audit
But we did that
inherently
al-
would be heard by the justices that were not involved in the changes, right? But why would that go straight to the state? Where is that enshrined in anything? That's not.
Because
The audit
we're
procedure
auditing
is-
your department.
Yeah.
But you're auditing a chain, that not the entire department as a whole.
so-
You're auditing
so-
that particular change, which was done by one justice who's no longer on the panel of justices.
It's because the timeline here is very convoluted, given it's been 2 months. Originally, when these things were audited, there were 3 justices. They were all conflicted. As a consequence, it was one of the justices sent it to the governor. All right, we didn't do that. And
for the Marshall one,
and the
FOIA one,
yes.
Okay.
So the proposal, so the one that there's version 1 and version 2 of, that went to the governor. We then received an email. We didn't even know it went to the state, like myself prior to Naya, but we received the response to it. In that response, that ultimately led to these meetings. Before that response even hit our desk, we had already went and audited the Marshall one and the Marshall legislation, as well as the FOIA legislation. At the time those were sent, there was still only 3 justices. Ipso facto, those also go to the state official. Since then, given that it's taken so long, there's now new justices that have taken the seat.
Right.
Yourself, Justice Arcadia, etc. So the formula has changed a bit. Unfortunately, y'all are also polluted now as a consequence of these, compensations sort of popping up. So now it's like, well, who's going to oversee it, right? So I don't know. That's a bigger question.
So Angel is the one that instituted the change of both the FOIA legislation and the Marshall legislation, correct?
All 3 did. Hollow and Hart as well. The amendment were signed off by all 3.
Oh, the amendment. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And the amendment is what we are challenging. It's not the entire legislation. It's just the alteration.
Arcadia, you're the only one that can hear the Marshall one then.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like that would
I
be
wouldn't
the
say
case.
she's conflicted by any of these conversations. We haven't even discussed anything about the Marshall one since she's got here. I'm not conflicted by any means other than the position that I was just appointed to, but I wasn't involved in any of that decision making or anything. But I'm conflicted in that regard, and obviously I gave my opinions on certain things earlier, so I would stay away from it anyway.
With all due respect, Justice Arcadia was here last week, in which a lot of discussion around that took place. So, I mean,
I don't. It was largely the FOIA. We had a conversation. You asked the question of what was going to happen to the marshals, and I told you we weren't sure yet, and that we were going to figure it out internally and then come to it to a decision. But that was the extent of our. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we had a whole conversation about. I had very pointed questions while you're president as to who runs the police department and the governance, et cetera, et cetera. We had a whole 10-15 minute. An old 10-minute conversation around that.
About the, I mean, listen, if you genuinely think if that's how you feel, I'm not gonna fight you on it because you know what,
it wasn't the marshals.
If it's conflicted, I don't really feel like it was. And for the sake of how I feel right now, I do not feel conflicted. I'd be happy to hear it out.
Yes,
but I also want to understand if it doesn't seem like it's in good faith.
It's
simply just because maybe I'm unaware.
I can understand.
Would have to
I can understand why.
That's the thing, or potentially the new face.
I can understand why you might think that, because it wasn't the marshals that were referenced directly, rather the organizational breakdown.
We were
Right?
largely talking about departments and each, the way they all succinctly work together. But like, we have those kind of conversations weekly,
That's the other thing, is that you got to remember, just because somebody's had a conversation about something doesn't
I
necessarily.
totally
inherently
understand these things. I appreciate it, guys, but I'm not retarded. You know what I mean?
We're not saying that you are. No way, shape, or form are we like
yeah,
insinuating
implying
it.
that.
No,
We're-
no,
I'm
I
just
know,
saying-
but
I'm letting you very
Yeah,
well
yeah,
be
yeah,
aware
yeah,
of the fact that I don't feel conflicted on the matter, because I don't feel like we had a very clear cut, facts put in front of my face, evidence put in my face of the situation.
Yeah.
But if it has to go to the state, or if it, there might be another justice coming soon, that might be a better option if you don't feel comfortable.
It's at the end of the day, it's about doing it the right way, right? And
That's what I'm gonna do. If you want it by an independent justice, that's perfectly fine. We do have anticipation of bringing one on in the next handful of days. Or if you would prefer and go the state route and have it be completely independent, you're welcome to do so. Whatever you
think,
want to do is
well.
better.
So I don't want this about what I want to do. We need to do it the right way, right? So I can tell you guys what the history of it is. I am simply stating that this was, we were told how to handle it, and I don't think anyone whose hand is the audit in today, like who's the arbiter of this at this very moment. Which justice?
I've not seen this audit, so I'm not sure.
That's part of the problem, right?
I mean, I'm conflicted on it anyway. Like that, who was it handed to? I guess, and that is part of that is definitely part of the problem. That
It was handed to me, but that
the
was when I
marshal
was the
one?
judge, the marshal one. So yeah, I would say on that front that I am conflicted, because I have read it over.
Reading the post,
Guys,
I
this
guess
is
if that's apparently what it takes, Weiss, then that's what it takes. I guess I'm conflicted.
Yeah,
hold on. Hold on.
Well, I'm just saying it's the lines
I
that we're actually
I personally
preaching are
don't think
actually
you're
getting a little
conflicted, but
ridiculous.
regardless, whether you're conflicted or not, if there is a potential for an accusation of bias, then we'll avoid that. There is potentially a new justice coming in. That is probably what I'm going to say is the quicker route to getting this done. If you want to do it the right way, Nino, the right way is definitely not us just going in and rolling it back. It's having this be heard and a determination be made through the proper channels. That can either be done through the new justice that's coming in, or if you want to go through the state to make it completely independent, that's perfectly fine. I imagine it'll probably take a little bit more time. Just guessing. I don't have any say over that.
I think you guys got to get that organized. Like, I don't know who's doing what and what it is, but we're the ones poking, right? So, what
if
are
you
the
think
next
all
steps?
of us
And
are conflicted,
I-
so if
I-
all of us are conflicted, the next step is give us a couple days. Let me get the new justice in here. That'll be the first thing on their plate.
The alternative is, I think you should maybe consider getting guidance from the governor how to handle this, because this is a very specific case here, right? Is that the confliction existed? It should have hit the governor's desk. He provided us with the guidance as to how to resolve it, but there's been a lot of churn in your department, understandably, right? You're trying to get your bearings to it, and you all come back and say, this is what we're going to do, right? So, and if we disagree, we'll do it legally. You know what I mean?
Hasn't Weiss just said how we're going to do it?
I heard a couple different things, so I don't know which one we landed on, to be honest.
Yeah, so we're going to get the new justice to take this up. A determination will be made by that justice as to the outcome of the audit that you've presented. If you're unsatisfied with that, you may escalate it to the state and the governor.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. If you'd want to bypass that process and go straight to the governor in the meantime for purposes of expediency, you're also welcome to do so.
Yeah, I mean, my big goal here, and I want you guys to understand this, is you as the DOJ, I get it. Individually, you are not at fault with this, but we have people waiting 2 months, so we got to find a way to get this done ASAP.
I get you.
And that's what it comes down to.
It's not like we're
right?
sitting on our asses over here. We are literally at this table too,
Yeah.
I've been doing
working
20-hour days.
Yeah.
I
doing
got
everything I
I
can.
promise this isn't just the only thing that we have in our scope. Again, we're having a massive overhaul internally. We are trying to get our ducks in a row so that we do it properly. Which I think is the end of the day is what it's very important considering the way that triggers have just been pulled the past month or two.
So then why do they make it more difficult? Okay. All right. All right. All right. What else would you guys like to discuss today?
Any other things that are urgent pain points that need to get addressed?
Do they know what this meeting's about
So,
anymore?
I had a conversation.
I'm so
to
confused.
Arcadia
The
about
problem
my,
is no one's like running the meeting.
marijuana prescription legislation.
This is
right?
not a feedback meeting for the
And
DOJ.
it seems like there is an
And I think they
issue
think
in the
it
sense that I
is.
should, according to her, write down where the weed itself. Anyways, thinking about cats, where the weed itself is coming from. And
Yeah, we're supposed to be discussing everything together, but this feels like a feedback
I just think
meeting.
it over kind of
Thing is,
complicates the law
oh my god, man. Losing it.
for no reason.
They need a-
I told you the reason.
They need a head.
Yeah, you said that it would be my responsibility to see where
I'm a
the weed
loser.
comes from, correct?
Because of the way that your legislation is currently written, where it's talking about medical grade specific marijuana.
So if I remove medical grade as the word, then should it go through?
Potentially, I'd have to look over it again, but I don't see why not. It's just like it's very clear cut that medical grade comes from a source that is tested by medical professionals.
Okay, so I'll do that. I'll remove the medical grade. I will amend it on the city hall, and we'll go from there.
There's another thing that we talked about though as well. What was the other point?
But if you do that, isn't it just weed at that point? It's not medicinal.
That's the point.
The
like, yeah,
point
where-
of the legislation is not to necessarily provide medicinal weed or not, because that would involve me getting
The problem is that
specific strain. It would be a whole thing.
I don't
The
think
point
they
is,
realize
Nino's
how
mayor now, and he legalized weed. But the next mayor
unorganized
can simply
they are.
roll that back, and all of my patients who need weed for their treatment would simply not have that. So it might seem like a law that is kind of useless-ish now, but if it's to set up and and protect the rights of those that need that in the future.
And that's
I
what's
just
getting
don't
frustrating.
understand, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, that these are patients obviously in your care, and yet where else would they be getting this weed from? Because just off the corner doesn't feel like in their best interest.
Well, they will be getting,
And they're
they
not
legally
paying attention
can.
in the
I just
meetings
don't
is
see
the thing.
the necessity to like
All right.
write this whole thing down like separately as like determine where it comes from, because then it also, if in the future there's other ways to do weed, what if individual growing is allowed by the next mayor? It creates a problem on itself.
I'm not super familiar with this, but it sounds like there's potentially room for some other thoughts to be given to it. Is this urgent to be flushed out right this moment? Or I feel like of the list of priority, because I've been trying to rank the things that we have in priority list, I don't necessarily know that this is near the top of the list. Am I wrong?
Yes. If Dr. Naya says it is, I'd like to think it is.
I mean, or we can just let it for the next SEMA director. My term is almost over already, anyways.
The issue, if I'm
No,
understanding this correctly, is that you've submitted this and there isn't a response.
Yeah. Yeah. I submitted this for a constitutional check. I submitted this first at the second day of my term, and then Angel first fully denied it and closed it for something that we had to talk to the governor, that he did say that justification wasn't correct. And then I submitted again, and then Arcadia raised her concerns.
Right. So, because remember when we had the conversation with the governor where you said that you felt it was an issue where if we found something unconstitutional,
doesn't.
that we
This
just
is
don't
why
snap it
there's
down, that we have a
V2,
conversation,
and they
then
haven't
I had a
accepted
conversation with
V2
you, and I
yet.
told you that was unconstitutional. So that's where we kind of came
This
to. And I'm sorry,
DOJ
like,
needs
again,
a
I've only been a
speaker.
justice for 2 weeks here.
Oh yeah. No.
So
DOJ
that's
needs a
why there's been
speaker.
that hindrance.
Otherwise, it's going to be a new justice
a
every day
verbal,
with their own opinion.
of me saying, "Hey, this is unconstitutional," so me writing it on the docket, which is in very bad form on my part, and I apologize for that. Because I wanted it to be a bigger conversation. I like having face-to-face, developmental conversations. I'm
But
sure all
then
of us
set
do.
up the
It's
meeting.
way more beneficial. And then you said you were tired and that we would talk the next day, and then we just haven't been able to cross paths. So I understand, and I do think this is a priority because of how long it's been on the docket or the City Hall app. But though as it stands right now, my reservations still stand.
All right, so I think
mean-
next step would be Arcadia definitely on the docket, respond there, pose the constitutionality concern, and then give Dr. Nashville a moment to submit the update. I think she said without removing the couple words. I'm not super read into this, so
You're good. I
forgive
got
me.
it.
She submits the amended version, removing that. If that's good, then you say it's constitutional, and we go to contest phase, and that can be done like ASAP, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Why is this
Cool.
unconstitutional again?
Because of the word of medical grade marijuana, and in our constitution, it has that's not it. I believe it's like right to freedom of health. I forgot the exact phrasing of it. It's right to health and protection of others. And if this is supposed to be within the realm of medical, that means the responsibility falls on our medical infrastructure to make sure it's happening properly. The liability is with us for the right.
But if she's the health director, isn't she deciding what would be
medical
help?
grade?
Yeah.
I mean, that was what my question originally came from, was like, what is medical grade? And we did have a conversation that it was, something tested, because we had a whole conversation about what was happening with the coke on the streets right now.
There's coke on the streets.
There
Yes.
is. It's pretty exciting, actually.
Oh my God. You want? We should do a bump after this.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jesus.
100%.
I guess it's not illegal right
Scheduled
now.
yet,
It's not
so, yeah.
illegal. Mhm.
I mean, should it be? You know what I'm saying?
Jesus Christ, Murray. No.
Well, I mean, well, there you
Exactly,
go.
Nino.
I mean, so then it would be so the concern is that how do you test whether it's didn't we? I thought if Dr. Naya wants to do medical related shit, doesn't she just kind of put it in? I'm still completely.
That
Please
is
point-
what the governor.
Explain it like I'm 5. Where, why? How is this unconstitutional?
It was just simply it was unconstitutional because of the way that we have healthcare, and that the liability of healthcare falls on the state. It was simply the uses of words like the medical grade marijuana that held reservations, and we were having a larger conversation. It was very much developmental. It wasn't me shutting it down. I didn't end the conversation.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
tell her no.
Gotcha.
Thank you,
It
which
was
is-
very
I
much, hey, let's
appreciate it.
work on this together, just for everyone's frame of reference.
So this is
Gotcha.
Article
Okay.
4, number 1, where citizens are eligible for subsidized emergency health care. And I guess, Arcadia, what you're saying has something to do with the fact that if there's medical grade marijuana, then potentially
Right.
the state could become responsible for subsidizing people's marijuana. Is that the concern, or
No,
where
it's
does the
Article
subsidy?
3, number 8.
3, number 8. Citizens have the right to health services and the right to protect themselves and others within reason.
Which,
What
in
is-
my
Health
opinion,
services.
the
something's
health
medical-
service would
Yeah,
be
it's a-
the prescription.
Right. Well, prescription, but then unfortunately, because of your legislation, the way that it's written, and we talked about this, was the grounds where it just didn't make sense.
So are you guys in agreement on the change, or are we disagreeing on the change? Let me
I'm
just draw
fine
this
that
back to the
if
baseline.
we do, yes, change that. And there was something else that I'm trying to find my notes on, but unfortunately, it's been a hell of a week.
Dr. Nashville, are you in agreement with
I
the
don't think
are
I
you
give
okay
a
with the
fuck
change,
about
or
anyone's
are you saying that
personal
the change
time,
should
man.
just-
Removing.
I'm
the word
really
medical
getting
grade
annoyed with
and
that
it goes
because
through,
I
then
love it, but we need to stop
that-
being
that's
pedantic.
okay. It gets
Why things need to be put down and follow the
people, the
thing that the
prescriptions they need.
DOJ
Okay,
put
dude,
in.
good with that.
And
Or
yeah,
they
they're
said there's
new,
another
but
thing you're looking
I don't
for.
know why.
Yeah, there's
what the
another
fuck
note, but
this is right
again,
now.
this was still very much developmental. This didn't need to come to everyone's plates. But
This
again,
is just
yeah.
very wasting my time right now. This sounds like when I went to a class.
While we are here, since we have spent as much time as we have,
I'm gonna
on
bring it up.
If we can flesh out whatever that other note is, and then Dr. Nashville can just submit the amended
It's
one.
just
and we'll
very
approve it.
unproductive. It's
Yeah,
like
so
people
that
showing
this
up
is wrapped up
to the
and done.
project that everyone
If
else was
it's,
working on. And they're like,
demonstrated
"Oh,
as a
yo,
priority,
guys, I'm here to participate."
both Nino and Dr. Nashville.
I
have said
didn't
it
do
is.
anything.
And I have agreed to. I've said
Easy.
it since it's been on the docket for months. I'm trying to find that note. I'm sorry. I've been
You're
dealing with shit all day.
Yeah.
While she's finding that note, and to give her a little bit of time, without just awkward silence, is there anything else of that was the pot legislation? Was there anything else that was urgent for today's meeting? From anybody?
I think this meeting, I think we need to figure out what our process is. I believe that every time we go to this meeting, we need an agenda and action items, so that throughout the week, whether individuals independently need to discuss things or need to do little sub meetings, they can do so that when we arrive at this meeting, we know what the agenda is, what needed to be completed by that week, otherwise, and then, keep the meeting rather succinct. What I would like to avoid us from doing is we attend the meeting and nothing's been cooked during the week, which is a very real reality, right? Whether it's Pride, whether myself, Naya, DOJ, etc., we don't want to get into that mix. Disagree or agree?
Yeah, no, agree. And that's why I said, obviously, we've got people here taking notes today.
Right.
My goal is to build out the clerk program to be a bit more of effectuating exactly that.
Okay.
And kind of keeping things on the rails for the purposes of running these meetings on Sundays or whatever other day that we decide to do these on a recurring basis.
Archie, since you were taking meeting notes, what did we discuss today, and what are the things that we're looking to get completed by next week?
Okay, going back in the note.
Can I bring up one thing before we go with the notes?
Yep.
In regards to just going back to the weed stuff.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that because I found the other note.
Oh, perfect.
Well, this is a separate thing, not like any. It's for the Ellis County stuff. Right now, as written, dispensaries can only give 6 joints in a single transaction. Obviously, you can say, well, they can do like 3 transactions if someone has a prescription, but it may be something to amend just to make things go easier. Right now, if someone shows up with a prescription that lets them have 10 joints, then they're going to need to do different transactions, and the dispensary might feel weird about it. But obviously, that's up to Nino and his staff.
Good little note. Good catch.
Wait, say that one more time.
So
you're saying there's like a certain amount for medical and a certain amount for.
No.
Yeah. So the way with Naya, correct me if I'm wrong, Naya, the way her legislation is set up is people can have 10 grams above the legal amount, right? The legal amount right now is 6 joints. So people can have 16 joints essentially.
Yeah.
But as written in the dispensary legislation for Ellis County, says dispensaries are all allowed to sell a maximum of 6 marijuana joints or the equivalent amount of baggies to a single customer per transaction. Now, obviously, you could do 6, 6, and then 4, but it may be something to amend just so that like they're allowed to sell 6 joints or 10 if they've got a valid prescription.
Yeah, and just this is not we're saying this is unconstitutional or saying you have to do this. Is just a hey, heads up, your 2 pieces of legislation conflict with each other a little bit. Might want to clean that up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
Easy. Arcadia, you had.
Yeah, my note wasn't unconstitutional, but it was just she and I talked about the removal of the prescription if it gets abused. I think we agreed on if a person is found to hold felony amounts of marijuana, that would be a removal. And then if they hold a misdemeanor,
I think it's hard to convey
and then they would go for
the frustration
in front of a medical board to see if they actually need the prescription or not.
Because I don't think they know what we're dealing with.
The legislation, but
and it may seem like we're being unfair here. But their institution is failing miserably, and someone's got to take a helm of it and control these meetings from their side. Otherwise, it is a huge waste of the rest of our time.
Maybe an SOP situation, since it comes from
and they're not. It seems like it's being taken personally, which is really rough. Because at that point, it's like I don't even want to talk
It's-
about it anymore.
It is definitely. I think when you mention it, you mention just abusing it, but the way you mention it now is actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That like, yeah, that
It's
I
because it's
think.
criminal. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, if
yeah,
it
the
is like
problem is
that,
we've had the conversation
then I
over
do
and over and
understand,
over
'cause
and over and
I'm
over
pretty sure when
again.
you mention like, oh, if they are abusing it, and that's just very general. But yeah, that could definitely be worked on. That if you have like a felony amount, you get a revoke, and if you have a misdemeanor, it could be
yeah.
suspended.
All right. If you guys are in agreement on that, then I think just the best course of action to get that forward in the most expedient manner would be the amended version go up with the removal of the 2 words and whatever you guys just discussed with regard to the revocation of the licenses. Arcadia will approve it for contest, and we'll get it hopefully in by mid to end week at the latest. That's as fast as it can get done. Cool.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. If you want to go back to notes and action items, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Archibald.
All right, here. Give me a second. We're gonna have to roll through this as I can. So, initially, talking about Justice Weiss coming in. Currently, I guess interim director of the Marshals might be the appropriate way to say it until you can find a replacement and get things restructured for that. Started talking about legislative proposal and approval process, version 1 and version 2, and how we're going to move forward on that. Judge Grayson here suggested moving case law precedents into City Hall website or any other method other than closing a case, something to use to make sure that it can stay fresh. Mayor Chavez brought up conditions and process to repeal legislation. Agreement seemed to be reached on having a contest period instead of instant repeals. Now, a second, got to keep looking through.
This is for next week, right? We're talking about
I'm talking about what we went over.
went over. Okay,
before.
yeah.
I'll let you know when I move on to the next week.
Just
cool. Thank you. Sorry.
You may just move on to the next week. If that's better for
just
everybody.
What are the action items and who is actioning them? Like, who's the owner of the action?
Well, primary 2 action items that I have written down is a potential emergency legislation powers to talk about for next week, potentially skipping contest period. Justice Weiss brought that up as something we should all look into an idea of. And then also the FOIA legislation, potential rewrite, the issues with the amendments that were made to that. And we're going to be talking about that next week as well. That I'm questioning on that one based on what I heard.
Okay. And we should be getting feedback on both the FOIA and the Marshall legislation. Am I correct for next week?
Yes.
And then based on that, we'll decide how to move forward with it.
Also hoping to put on everyone's radar. Actually, never mind. I'll talk to Weiss about this after.
Okay.
Anybody got anything else for right now?
Yeah. No. I think
I'll be available throughout the week if anybody has any questions or anything, or wants to move forward any of the discussions in advance of next week's meeting. Next week's meeting, obviously, we'll do our best to have a little bit of. We have some action items that we're ready to discuss next week, but my goal will be to have 1 or more clerks at the next meeting to properly flush out notes, action items, and set the agenda for the following
what is
week
this
and going
meeting?
forward.
And I think we need to figure out what that is. And I say
This
that from
weekly
the
meeting.
correct, because I think when it was first sort of discussed, I think we all have our own idea as to what it is, and I think honing in on what this meeting is going to be very important.
I think it's just a forum for us to address any of areas of contention amongst the various different factions of legislative bodies. We have the DOJ, the Blaine County Mayor's Office, the Los Santos Mayor's Office, and the medical group here. To the extent that we potentially even want to invite high command of other factions, whether that be EMS, PD, etc.
I was just saying, he
to
just
speak
showed
to
up
us on any
today.
particular matters that involve legislative issues.
So
We're
a
welcome to do it.
council.
Not a council, more of just like just an interfaction meeting. Like all of our factions come together to have a meeting about any issues that need the other factions to address.
Where did you derive this from, if I may ask, just twice?
That was just my understanding of the meeting when I was told I need to show up here. What day am I available of the week to have meetings with the mayor's offices on a recurring basis?
I gotcha. Okay.
That's my understanding of the goal of this meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever that is, I think we gotta hone in on that next meeting.
Okay.
I want to keep this significantly more limited, very much more limited. Otherwise, we're not, I don't believe we're gonna get any work done. And too many voices. There are 4 legislative bodies. Having our assistants, etc., be present, I think it's all good. But limiting the voices to get what the legislative bodies have contention on, voting what's necessary, and then setting up an agenda for next week is what I think it should be limited to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will discuss that and set essentially the charter of these meetings at the next meeting.
Yep.
Sorry, Grayson. Oh my god.
Hey.
Grayson be Grayson. There can only be one.
Oh shit!
I
All
already
right.
have the justice seat. Okay.
That's what I did to
Oh,
RJ.
I threw this out a long time ago. It's something I'm going to propose at some point. But what do you guys think about mutual combat legislation? This is not urgent in any way, shape, or form. Now
I'm gonna
spitballing.
Weiss, I'm gonna throw you out the fucking window. I swear to fucking God. All right, because
What? It sounds
be
fun.
neutral?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You want to be the first mutual combat?
exactly.
Nino?
That's my
you versus
point.
me? Oh.
Oh
Let's
my
do it.
God.
All right.
but-
Light note. Anything else, guys?
Um,
I do want to, like I said at the very beginning, there's been a sense of hostility and contention in the air when it comes to this stuff. I do want to try to draw that back a little bit. We're all working towards the same objective.
Yeah,
here and putting in a ton of time, effort, energy, care, patience into everything that we're doing. We all obviously very deeply care about what we're doing here. I just want there to want it to be known that respect each and every one of you for all of the time, effort, and energy you put into everything you do.
I appreciate that. And listen, our energy, I hope you understand, we're directing it at the institute that you have inherited, not y'all specifically. Right. So
We know it's frustrating. Trust me,
yeah.
you see it firsthand. I can only imagine trying to work with it. So we do appreciate you guys still willing to bear with us.
Yeah. It's if you saw the shit that was written about me, you might begin to understand.
Yeah, how's those FOIAs look?
I do not know how that
Don't tell me,
person
don't tell me.
had any authority in their fucking life.
Ooh.
It's disgusting.
I want to avoid anything of potential conflict. So with that, we'll probably call it. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, I'll be available if anybody needs anything. And so Cardi is around.
Yeah,
probably be the main ones until we get the fifth justice around. And then
unfortunately, the next 2 weeks are going to be stretched very thin. So I do apologize, but most of you guys have my email if you need anything.
How dare you apologize for enjoying holidays?
Well, I mean,
how dare you
It's really
how
bad.
dare you apologize
I'm lucky I'm
for
here right now.
being holidays? What the hell?
Oh my God.
All right, y'all have a good one. Thank
Yeah.
you. Arcady, you need me?
Good night.